What is up, everybody? Welcome back to Water Cooler Talk. My name is Caleb Turner, and I'm a sports writer at KSL.com. Today, February 9th, 2025, we are joined once again by Deseret News reporter Jackson Payne, who is joining us hot off the latest Super Bowl 59 down in New Orleans, where you actually were earlier this week, Jackson. The Eagles came away with the win against the Chiefs. No three-peat for the Chiefs. Sad day for the Chiefsdom. But I think they'll be all right. And I'm just kind of curious, obviously, you were there before the actual game, but like, what were the vibes like? What was the experience like there down? Was it your first time in New Orleans?
My first time in New Orleans. I think I liked the city better when the Eagles weren't winning Super Bowls there. It was a good time though. I mean, I was in Vegas last year for some Super Bowl like pre-week stuff, and it was a good time. I think I enjoyed this trip better just because like last year I'd like just gotten the Deseret job. It was my first time at a Super Bowl. I was kind of like kid in a candy store mode the whole time, just trying to soak it all in. And this year it was just straight up business trip, like get content, like get churn stories. And I still had my moments to like, go up to people I looked up to and talk to famous people and have those kind of moments and be able to tell some stories later. But no, it was a good time. It was New Orleans. They definitely put a lot of lipstick on the pig down there to make it suitable for Super Bowl Sunday. There was, I mean, the security situation was crazy just with everything that happened on New Year's. Like there
Yeah.
I stayed at the Chiefs hotel and there were like two tanks next to the hotel, like legit tanks.
Oh my word.
Not Tank the Shredder Evans from Surf's Up, but like legit military tanks just.
Yeah.
But yeah, there were Philly fans everywhere. I mean, you kind of saw that at the game today, but really, I mean, just it was a cool time. I mean, there's just something about like the vibe in the city when the Super Bowl's there. Like everyone's happy, everyone's loose. It's a really cool thing. It's kind of like being on campus when your school's in like a March Madness run for basketball. Like it's just everyone's happy. Like there's just kind of a chipper feeling in the air. So it was cool.
Yeah, and as far as local connections go for us covering sports here in Utah, I know you got a chance to kind of say what's up to Puka, who is not in the Super Bowl but was there with because he's just become like a face of the NFL essentially and doing
Yeah.
all his publicity stuff. And then I guess in today's game, obviously you got Andy Reid who did not get the win. If we had BYU local fans cheering for him, there was technically Brayton Covey, former Utah guy, who gets a ring with the Eagles though he didn't play today.
Yeah.
So a couple interesting things there, but yeah, I guess from your angle, I know you were doing a couple stories out there for Deseret. What were kind of your local takeaways?
Yeah, obviously I did a Puka story. I ran into Brian Billick, former Ravens head coach, who won a Super Bowl there and played at BYU. Dennis Pitta was there for some reason, so I caught up with him. Tanner McKee as well, Eagles
Oh
third
yeah,
stringer, return missionary, the first return to missionary quarterback to go to a Super Bowl, which is pretty cool. I
wow,
mean,
yeah,
obviously there aren't a ton of return missionary quarterbacks. I'm hoping it'd be cool if that kind of became the trend now, or like guys go on missions because of guys like Tanner McKee or Taysom Hill. But
yeah,
that's cool. But yeah, just it was weird because like I mean Kellen Moore, obviously the play caller for the Eagles, is a member of the church. Apparently, it sounds like he's going to get the Saints job. With Taysom and Dallin Holker there, they're going to be the New Orleans Latter-day Saints with
yeah. There it is.
coming, you know. But the one thing I kept thinking, and I'm not trying to like throw shade at all, but like the Chiefs' offensive line was so bad today, and I think it's been bad all year, and it's kind of like it's flown under the radar just because their defense has been so good, and Patrick Mahomes is a magician, and just for whatever reason today he was bad, and their offensive line was so bad today. And you think about a guy like Kingsley Sumatai
Yeah,
at BYU. He started the season as their left tackle. He's a rookie. He was their second round draft pick. So they invested on the offensive line in a big way in drafting Kingsley, and he didn't even see the field.
yeah.
I think he did they even kick any field goals or have any extra points? I don't think they did. Like that was kind of the only thing he was doing this season after he got benched in week two. So you have when you miss high in the draft on your offensive line, it's going to be really hard to come like you have to make up a lot of ground for that. I mean, these games, especially in the playoffs, are won in the trenches. Philly absolutely bullied Kansas City on both sides of the ball. And if you had a guy like Kingsley from BYU who played up to his reputation during the season and maybe could have been a bigger part of that offensive line had he played better, maybe this game is a little bit different. But I mean, it's kind of a what could have been. Like I'm not trying to like disrespect Kingsley or anything. It's just a bummer that his rookie season didn't go the way he planned, and it's obviously a bummer for Andy Reid because this is two Super Bowls now for Andy. Obviously, he lost one with the Eagles when they lost to the Patriots, but then this is two Super Bowls with the Chiefs for Andy where they've just gotten flat out mauled.
Yeah.
And the first one, you play Tom Brady. The Bucks were kind of a team of destiny, if you can even call them that, with Tom Brady. Patrick still had a good game, but like today, everything went wrong. That defense got shredded. The offense was bad. Mahomes looked worse than we've ever seen him. Travis Kelce looked as washed as we've ever seen. Like it was just, it was. Look, I'm a big time Eagles hater, and it was just poison watching that game. Like I could not believe because the whole week I was like, yeah, these Philly fans, they're talking smack, but like, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. Like you can't bet against Mahomes. But oh my gosh, it was the Kansas City Jaguars, bro. Like it's just I cannot believe how bad they look today, and it's a bummer because a guy like Andy Reid deserves to win Super Bowls. But I mean, he's got three already. He'll be fine.
Yeah, at one point my dad was like, "Do you think they would like bench Mahomes?" And I was like,
Not
and
with
like,
Carson Wentz on the
I was gonna say the more I thought about it, I was like, wait, I think the backup is Carson Wentz. I'm like, I don't know if that's what you want in the biggest moment of your season, because
hey, hey, hey,
I mean he couldn't even handle it when it was his original team with the Eagles, dude. Like it was
hey,
they had to bring Nick Foles in.
one shot, universe on the line. I want Carson Wentz.
The alien ray pointed to Earth.
Man, that was a bummer. I mean, look, I've seen what Carson as a Commanders fan, I've seen what Carson Wentz does in a must-win game, and it's ugly. So I'm as bad as Mahomes was, Carson Wentz would have been so much worse.
Carson Wentz comes in. He's wearing like a full Chiefs uniform, but he's wearing the Eagles helmet. That's that cursed picture that you always share, where he's wearing
Like
the
the Eagles helmet, the Commanders jersey, and the Colts shorts, just
so
so
good.
nasty. And then dude, one of the craziest pieces of Carson Wentz lore is that he's the quarterback who threw Puka his like record-breaking pass
Oh my
last year. When
gosh.
Puka broke the rookie receiving record, they benched Stafford in that game because they already clinched, and or Wentz was the one who threw it to him. It's like when we look at that clip years from now, it's gonna be like, what is Carson Wentz doing here? Like,
I just love it. Pretty much the only two people I know with the last name Wentz is Carson and Pete. There's something about the Wentzes, man.
the Wentzes be tripping.
Oh man. So yeah, that's basically. I mean, that covers a lot of what went down today. I guess with Super Bowl. I was gonna bring up the Kingsley thing as well because obviously a lot of people were complaining about the line, and it was pretty like sad. Like obviously I'm not a Chiefs fan by any stretch of the imagination, but like it was just sad to watch like over and over again. He just Mahomes just getting pummeled. Like he had no chance. And so that was hard to watch. Didn't have much run game, and yeah, but I mean, you have to imagine they'll be right back in it next year. This was kind of a down year for the Chiefs anyway. Like they had all those one score wins. They were kind of getting by the skin of their teeth anyway. And I even mentioned to my brother too. I was like, last year's Super Bowl went to OT. And so like they've like if they had gone
They,
a three-peat, it would have been like a crazy like skin of their teeth three-peat too. Like
yeah,
they've
they've skated on thin ice in all their Super Bowls. That's
right,
what
yeah.
like because the 49ers Super Bowl, the first one right before COVID hit, they were down by 10 in the fourth quarter against Jimmy Garoppolo. So like, come on,
Yeah.
you can't
Yeah.
be losing to Jimmy Garoppolo by 10 in the fourth quarter. So they had to come back from that. Then 2 years ago, Mahomes hurts his ankle and goes on whatever drugs saved him, and there was the controversial PI call. And then last year it goes to overtime, and Brock Purdy outplayed Mahomes. Like Mahomes is not. I mean, he has three Super Bowl MVPs, but like Jalen Hurts outplayed him 2 years ago. Brock Purdy outplayed him last year, and today Mahomes didn't even play. Like I don't
Literally. Yeah.
know, right? Like the final score, it's kind of like this might be my revisionist biased history coming out, but like when the Eagles dropped 55 on the Commanders 2 weeks ago, the final score was not as bad. Like the final score was a lot worse than the game because of all the fumbles. Like
Yeah.
had the Commanders not fumbled so much, like it would not have looked as ugly as it did. And today, the final score did not do justice to how ugly the game was.
Yeah,
Like,
there was not 20 points from the Chiefs. Like that doesn't make
100%.
any sense.
It was, I mean, Xavier Worthy just kind of like bailed him out on two different occasions, right? So,
Yeah.
like, DeAndre Hopkins, Unk still got it, but that was just so disgusting. Like, that was just the whole time I was just thinking, like, dude, I wish this was the Bills. I wish this was the Commanders, like, even the
Oh,
Lions. Like, we,
Josh
we
Allen, we
there
failed
were so
you.
many there's so many awesome stories in the NFL this year. We got stuck with a Chiefs Eagles rematch, and like obviously the three-peat was a cool storyline, and adding Saquon was a cool storyline, but like just I love parody, man. Like I don't know if we'll ever fully appreciate the Rams Bengals Super Bowl because that was just so random. That was such a Madden like AI computer generated matchup and it totally lived up to the hype. It was awesome. Like it's one of the best Super Bowls of our lifetime, but just such a bummer that the that today, I mean, I just wish it could have been a closer game. I wish the Chiefs could have made it more interesting because it just makes you think like for as a Commanders fan, I'm like, if we had beaten the Eagles 2 weeks ago, could we have done this to the Chiefs? Like, I don't know if
Right.
we would like whipped them as hard as the Eagles did, but like, could we have beaten them or like, could the Bills have beaten the Eagles? Like, there's just so many things like why did we let the Chiefs get here in a down year? You know, like why did we pay this price? So just it's a bummer, but you know what? The NFL rigged for ratings. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say I'm just
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that would kind of make sense because they get here and then they're like, well, it's the last game, so we don't really have to rig it to get any more ratings after this, so we'll just let them play, right?
every few years the NFL has to have a blowout just so people don't think it's scripted ever because we've had some crazy like
Yeah.
since the Brady Mahomes Super Bowl, every year it's been a really close, like exciting game. And then this year it was kind of like do theory, right? Like it was supposed to fall apart at this point. And then you had that Seahawks Super Bowl where they beat the Broncos and just killed them like 9, 10 years ago. Like every few years you need a little bit of a reality dose. Like, okay, sometimes one team gets in that's way better than the other team, or one team just lays an egg and kind of saw that tonight. And it just it also puts things in perspective because everyone was ready to crown Mahomes as the best ever, and they were ready to put Andy Reid on the Mount Rushmore of head coaches, and it's not correct. Like
Yeah.
I love Andy Reid, but he's not a top five head coach ever, and Mahomes is not better than Tom Brady, and he's probably not better than Joe Montana either. Like I mean, maybe physical ability, absolutely, but like there's just something about when it comes to winning these big games that like Mahomes has come through at times, but he's like 50-50 on these type of games, you know? So it's a bummer, but at least we get a whole nother year of football next year.
That's why we play the games, right? Because it's not all about narratives. Before we move on to even more disgusting local sports news, just wanted to make sure, was there any other experiences that you had down in New Orleans that you wanted to share with the Utah sports crowd?
Man, like I said, I got to talk to a lot of people, just kind of network, talk to people from podcast and radio and different writers that I like. And every time I bring up, yeah, I write for Deseret News in Salt Lake, cover a lot of BYU stuff, just like, oh yeah, the BYU Jew, we love that guy. So the BYU brand is growing, man. Like
Yeah,
everyone's all in on Jake Retzlaff. I mean, I'm not there yet, but you know, everyone's his legend grows. So it was cool to have that representation down there. And obviously getting to see Puka was cool, and Brian Billick was one of the greatest interviews I've ever done. I mean, I talked about it on Twitter. Like I feel like Brian Billick is like the most underrated piece of Lavelle Edwards' legacy, just because he's had like this super cool NFL career. He's a Super Bowl winning head coach, and we never really talk about him in BYU circles because Andy Reid or Mike Leach or all these other guys kind of come up first, but like Brad Billick is the man, dude. Like that was super cool interview, just all time football guy. Loved getting to talk to him. That's one of my favorite stories I've ever written. So if you haven't given it a read, go ahead and do so at Deseret. But yeah, great week. Excited for next year in San Francisco. Hopefully my Commanders are there and some other compelling Utah ties. But yeah, anyone but Philly, anyone but Kansas City at this point.
good food?
Good fit, dude. I went to the original Popeyes
No way.
and the original Ruth's Chris. I know
Oh my
that's
gosh.
opposite ends of the spectrum, but like I feel like I got my food pilgrimage money's worth. So it was ate a lot of good food. And there was a Shake Shack down the street from my hotel, and there's some like authentic like Cajun chicken next door too. And so I ate pretty good, but I definitely lost some weight because I was walking like 4 miles a day.
That's true. That helps.
Keep
You,
walking.
you know, it's crazy. You went to the first Popeyes because, or, yeah, for first Popeyes because I live down the street from the first KFC. So, you
Dude, have
know,
you been to that one? It's awesome. It's like a museum.
dude, they have a statue of Colonel Sanders out front. It's awesome. Yeah, it's
A
fantastic.
picture with it, dude. It's like honestly, like I felt the spirit in that KFC, bro. Like it's a holy place.
The spirit of the Colonel, indeed. Well, as I mentioned, we do unfortunately have to move onto some mostly disheartening local sports news. Although there is a ray of hope in here somewhere that we'll find and we will talk about a little bit because I know we're both up and coming fans of this team. But we do have to start out with a little bit of jazz. Unfortunately, the Downers, the Tankers, the captured the Flaggers as they are. Surprisingly, the Jazz did end up winning two of their last three games on their most recent homestand. But then they left Utah and they've dropped their first two games on their road trip, Phoenix and then to the Clippers. So tough go there. But you know, you want to stay in that bottom three, which is where they've managed to stay. You know, you win one, you lose 10. That's just how it works out. And then, but this is where we have some fun. Is Utah Hockey Club. They've won three out of four this week, and all three of those wins were in OT. Two with overtime game winners, one in a shootout today. And Dylan Guenther had both of the overtime winners. I know you've been to a couple hockey games at the Delta Center at Jackson. It was really exciting week for the team. I know you were out of town, but just reactions to see that finally some things are kind of coming through for this squad.
Totally. I mean, this year is such a big I feel like obviously you want to make the playoffs this year, you want to contend, but like the biggest thing for this team is establishing the fan base and kind of like laying the groundwork for a culture, right? And when you have a guy like Dylan Guenther, who's this up and coming star, he's been so good for this team. And him and Logan Cooley both are just kind of like the future. Like Clayton Keller's already arrived. He's an all-star type talent. He's the captain. You know what you're getting with him. But a guy like Logan Cooley and a guy like Dylan Guenther, these are your highly touted prospects you bring up. And the returns this year have been incredible. I mean, you get a guy like Gunther that just goes clutch mode in big moments and pulls out wins with the stick is just incredible. And I know Cooley's going to be out for a while, but I'm liking what I'm seeing from the team. You know, the fire the bear crowd might have been a little too premature, and I'm
Yeah,
just going to leave it at that. But yeah,
loving the energy from the boys.
loving the energy from the boys. That's such a good pull.
But
Real.
it is interesting you mentioned the Cooley thing because so Cooley and Gunther were both injured at the same time, like as of like a week ago, and I was worried. I was like, I guess that's just the end of the season. Both are young up and coming guys. And then Gunther comes back from injury and like immediately has these two insane moments. So I think that was really cool to see because like I think kind of felt like hope was really dwindling for this season to make the playoffs and stuff. They're like maybe do we punt for next year, run it back. But then he comes back and kind of like you mentioned, like you need these moments to really rally a fan base to bring them together. Like it's these moments that you remember as a fan, right? It's these overtime, the game winners. You need those to kind of hook people, and hopefully they can get more of them at home. I know a couple of these were on the road. Today's win was especially crazy against your local Caps over there in DC. I think Ovechkin had an assist on the tying goal to send it to OT, and then it goes to a shootout. So just like pretty insane things, and it's good to see the hockey club on the winning side of close games because they've had so many close games go the opposite direction, like so many. They've had so
Yeah.
many close overtime games where they've like let leads slip away and all that. So it's good to like see the opposite happen for once.
Totally. Yeah, their consistency has always been the issue there just because they're so young. And I feel like with the injuries, like you never get the consistency on like your personnel. But like when their offense is on, it's one of the best in the NHL. Like they have some really talented offensive players. They have some good shooters. Like I said, Clayton Keller's an all-star talent. Dylan Guenther, Logan Cooley have been solid. Josh Doan is kind of
Yeah,
going crazy right now, and obviously he's a guy that you want to look for just because he's got that pedigree in the franchise. And then defensively has kind of been their issue, but when you get, I mean, Ian Cole's having a nice year. Sergachev has been good as advertised. You finally get Marino back. Like it feels like the pieces are kind of coming together. Where maybe it's kind of like I'm kind of reminded of the Lions in 2022. They were the Hard Knocks team. Everyone kind of like fell in love with them in the offseason. They were up and down early, and then they ended the year really encouragingly to the point where like they barely missed the playoffs, but you knew the next year like okay, this team's gonna be a problem. And I'm kind of seeing some vibes from this team this year in Utah where it's like okay, maybe you're not playing for this year, but like they're laying the groundwork to do something next year. And I just think the future is so bright for hockey in Utah. It's so much fun today, especially like I'm a Caps fan, but I can appreciate the boys going to Utah and are going to DC and getting the job done, not flinching when they gave up a lead late. Veggie was incredible behind the goal, or between the sticks, I should say. Like their goalie situation's been nice. Like to go to a team like the Capitals that are the best team in the NHL. They have a couple future Hall of Famers on their roster. They're probably going to be a Stanley Cup contender this year, I hope. But to go there and to take that early lead and just kind of punch them in the mouth right away, and then to slip it to let the lead slip a little bit, but not really panic and figure out how to pull a win out at the end. Like that's such impressive stuff for a young team. And I think about like they went to Vegas and won 6-0 this year. They beat the Jets at one point. They beat the Caps now. Like they've had a few of these very seminal like defining moments as a team that you can build on. And I'm really encouraged about what this team can become when maybe like, you get more continuity and consistency in your personnel and you have some branding that kind of like makes you feel more at home and the fans buy it. It's just like everything, the trajectory of this team is awesome right now. And so if you're not paying attention to the Utah Hockey Club, you got to start now because you got to get in on this team on the ground floor because the stock's only going to get more and more expensive.
Yes, good call there. And I think speaking of branding, I believe we're gonna probably have an announcement like pretty soon about the mascot because the voting is over. They did vote at the home games, but that homestand where they were doing it is now has now ended. They're back on the road. So yeah, we should be getting an announcement. Like I would assume, from what I've been hearing, just like anecdotally, Mammoth seems to be like a pretty big hit. I think as far as like the logos go, that one looked the best on like jerseys and stuff.
I
So
went and voted, and Mammoth was by far the best. Like it's just
yeah. Yeah, so hopefully, like with that announcement too coming up, like that can drum up some more excitement, and like maybe they slide into like one of those last couple seeds, into the playoffs, make a bit of a run. Who knows? But I think more often than not, like improvement in a franchise is incremental. It's pretty rare that you go from like a lottery team suddenly into like a contender, right? That's way more rare than like you make the playoffs but you lose in the first round, then you make them and then you go to the second round. You know what I mean? So I think as long as you can kind of get that improvement little by little, which the Coyotes team where they came from was like the last several years perennially like either just like very like meh or like straight up lottery team, top 10 draft pick. So you want to be able to make those incremental improvements. Hopefully they can do that. More on the hockey club coming up, though. I will give a spoiler. One of my winners, actually my only winner of the week, is Dylan Guenther. Indeed, I mean you hit two overtime game winners in a week, coming right off injury. Like you get my winner for that week. So shout out Dylan Guenther, super young kid, 21 years old, and just killing it at like the highest possible level he could. And then to wrap up a couple more of our recaps, Utah State, still the best men's basketball team in the state. Two road wins at Wyoming and Fresno State to move to 21-3 on the season. Just a great clip for this time of the year. We want to keep that going consistently heading into March. BYU men's basketball unfortunately took a bit of a dip after that four-game win streak, losing two this week. Utah men's basketball, the other Big 12 team, has basically won every other game over the last 2 weeks. And then lastly, our two main women's basketball teams, Utah, winning five in a row. So shout out to the women up on the hill, including a 44-point win over UCF just this weekend to move to 18-5 on the season. I wouldn't be surprised if they could sneak back into the rankings soon, if they can kind of keep this win streak going. And BYU women's basketball have actually won two of their last three after that unfortunate five-game losing streak. So maybe they can piece some things together. I know you mentioned it before, but any plans to sneak into a women's basketball game sometime this year, Jackson?
Dude, I got to. I mean, I feel like I haven't been in forever. Gotta figure it out. I mean, think about it, but those courtside seats are so money.
I
If
know.
I can get the Spider-Man 3 on the tablet again,
That
then
that
I'm
that
there.
that'll be it right there. Then
That'll
that's
be
how we
there.
know. Yeah.
I'm actually speaking of basketball. I'm covering the Jazz game on Wednesday against the Lakers.
Okay. Oh yeah. Which was my great segue there, because that is my next piece of news as we look ahead. Jazz at Lakers in LA. Crypto for Luka's debut in yellow, purple and yellow, purple and gold, whatever they call it. Tomorrow night on ESPN. They moved it up to national television. Jazz get a
They
national
finally
TV
got
game.
they finally got it right on national TV.
And that's followed up by this is pretty insane. The Jazz have a 9-game homestand over that. Obviously, All-Star break is included in that. But starting with the Mavericks, or sorry, not the Mavericks. It should be the Mavericks. With Luka should still be in the Mavericks, but the Lakers with Luka at the Delta Center on Wednesday. So that's exciting. I don't think, I mean, since that trade went down, I don't think we've had a chance to talk about it. But that's exciting. You get to go to that. I was looking at tickets, and they actually weren't too bad since the Jazz are too bad, like super not good right now. But yeah, I mean, hopefully it's not as bad as the Kobe retirement game against the Jazz.
It was
Um,
that was
but
terrible.
I mean, there's gonna be a lot of eyes on the Jazz tomorrow night and
I just
Wednesday.
I really hope, honestly, just like I really hope LeBron plays on Wednesday. I hope Luca plays. Like I know load management is
Yeah, yeah.
the NBA. LeBron hates playing in Salt Lake, but like it'd just be so cool to see those guys. Like, I mean, that's you want to see a team with that much star power at full power, right? And so I've never covered a Jazz regular season game before. I went like my freshman year, I went with the Universe and I covered Jimmer coming back, but like that barely counts, right?
Yeah.
Like so this is my first rodeo for regular season and could not have been a better game to start. So it'll be fun, but looking forward to seeing all the fake Laker fans show up in Salt Lake and supporting their boy Luca because whatever it is, I don't know what it is about that franchise, but they just keep falling up, man. I mean, it's pretty unreal.
Yeah, it it is unreal. Like it still doesn't feel real that Luka Doncic is on the Lakers.
And
Um,
the Mavs leaked out that AD stuff during the Super Bowl, so it would kind of like
just
just
slide right under the
what
radar.
is going
Yeah.
on with the Mavs, dude? Like what kind of Dan Snyder shenanigans is going on in that building? Like it's just I didn't realize how dysfunctional that franchise was until all this Lucas stuff hit the fan. Like it's just it's insane.
Honestly, it's really interesting that you bring up Dan Snyder because there were like some similar like harassment type claims against like Mavericks employees a few years ago. And then you like obviously I know he's getting older and like he wants to try to change up things, but like Mark Cuban selling the majority of his stock and like the thing he was most passionate about in life has to raise some flags for some people.
Yeah.
And like he even like briefly mentioned the Luca thing like in a joking way in like in some event he was at the other day. And like it's just sad to see like it's just people obviously like there's a lot of jokes surrounding it and like there's the Mavericks fans outside the arena like carrying a casket around and everything and like saying fire Nico their GM. But it's just crazy because like you're shifting the landscape of an entire league with that. And now with yeah and Davis injured like you said like it's just unfortunate. You got to feel for those fans. Luckily, I mean, I feel like with a small market team, like that doesn't happen as often because you want to like clutch your pearls a little more. You want to like hang on to what you got because you know like it may never happen again. Which, I mean, I'm starting to believe that Cooper Flag to the Jazz could honestly be a thing. I know there's the possibility of the Wizards too. They're right in there, with the bottom three pick. But like, man,
There's
if
just
they
something about Cooper Flag
right,
that screams Utah Jazz.
yeah,
Can't put my finger on it, but it just feels inevitable. Like it just feels like the Jazz are the Cooper Flag team. And like I know that everyone freaked out that they didn't trade Collins or Clarkson or Sexton at the
yeah,
deadline. It's like they're losing with them. Like
exactly,
if you get too bad, like it just feels like the tanking gods punish you. Like you look at the Pistons, like the Pistons had the number one pick once when they were the worst team like four times, right? Like you
yeah.
kind of have to be calculated with how you tank. And I mean, look, the Jazz cut Mo Bamba. Like they are not serious about winning.
Yeah, let's just be honest for a second. And you don't want to have, if you do end up with a top three pick or you end up with the best player in the draft, you don't want him arriving to like a decimated organization where there's no infrastructure, no players, no veterans for him to learn from. So yeah, I mean, say what you will about that. The Jazz were plenty involved in the trade deadline already. Like, I'm not like I think if they wanted to do it, they could have easily. And they would have, frankly, because they were involved in Danny Ainge just out there like.
Danny.
He's just making calls, dude. Like the guy is he's rolling on something.
This had to be Danny's favorite trade deadline ever because he got to do everything that he loves,
Yeah.
just facilitate larger deals, stack up second round picks. Like he loves that like in depth like sicko type behavior on
100%.
and so I feel like this was like his personal Super Bowl. Like, look, if I can't move one of my stars or one of my better players, and I can't get a star, I'm just gonna be involved. Like, I'm gonna go in there and make it about me. So honestly, respect to Danny for just sticking to the brand because that was just why are the Jazz in every trade? Like, I have a buddy at Sports Illustrated, and he texted me. He's like, "What are the Jazz doing?" And I'm like, "Look, we just kind of let Danny do his thing, you know, like."
It's so true though. Honestly, that should be the motto for the Jazz going into tomorrow's game against Luca is make it about you. Make it
Yeah.
about you, Jazz. I want to see some crazy dunks, you know. If you gotta hound Luca, he's gonna call for some, he's gonna complain to the refs and maybe you'll get a lucky break there. Who knows?
I love the one thing I like about the Jazz this year. I haven't watched a ton, but like from what I've heard and like from my avid box score skimping, it just feels like they're taking a lot of these teams right down to the wire. They're going to overtime. Like I feel like there's some growing moments in these games. Like I don't know like how many of these young players they have on the roster are like legit next phase of the franchise type guys, but at least they're developing them, right? Like at least a Keontae George and Isaiah Collier and Kyle Filipowski, like these kind of guys are contributing and they're playing these high stakes minutes when it's like maybe in a few years these guys are around and they're playing. You know, it's a tight playoff series, and they've been here before, right? They've gone down to the wire in these games, and they know what to do. It's kind of like in NCAA basketball when you have a team like BYU that they've been together a while, they've played in a lot of close games. It suits them well for March, right? And so I don't know. I hope the Jazz are learning. I think that they'd have to be because like if you're not winning, you should be learning it, right? But I don't know. I mean, I'm excited to see my boy Cooper Flag next year in Salt Lake. That's that's what I'm feeling.
Yeah, I feel like the name Cooper like just fits in Utah too. Like it's probably like I could probably walk down the street and just like yell Cooper and a kid would probably come out of his house. So
Yeah, a kid in a Patagonia jacket, just uh wearing like socks and sandals, just typical like lone peak kid, you
yeah,
know.
exactly.
Hey Cooper, hey brother Flag, we come mix with us, right? Like,
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you mentioned a little bit of NCAA college basketball as well because it's a great segue as we kind of finish up this look ahead here. I do want to mention Utah Hockey Club. Their All-Star break, at least I believe that's what it is sooner is happening sooner than the NBA. So they're off until February 22nd at the LA Kings. So big game. We got a couple big games in LA for Utah teams coming up. Jazz tomorrow, and then the Hockey Club, which maybe they'll be the Mammoth by that point on February 22nd. Who knows? They'll be facing the Kings. So Mammoth v Kings. Watch out for that one. But lastly, as we finish up here, our college teams, what's happening this week? Utah State at home in Logan at the Spectrum versus Colorado State. Then making the trip down to New Mexico. BYU with a big one at West Virginia. Big test for those Cougs. Let's just kind of isolate that one real quick because we haven't
yeah,
talked too much about BYU. This can kind of be our last deep dive. But
yeah.
thoughts heading into that big road match for them.
BYU has a 4 game stretch that's really, really tough. And like it's February 9th, and I feel like we still don't have a good grasp on like what this team is, you know? Like I it just I don't understand. They're just so inconsistent. Like one game they're hitting all their threes, and other games they can barely bring the ball up court. I don't know, man. Like it's just this team has so many question marks still, and I feel like after this 4 game stretch, like we're gonna know for sure what this team is. They got to go at West Virginia, which is a really tough place to play. The Mountaineers have been a little bit better this year, at least compared to last year.
Yeah.
Then they're home against a red hot Kansas State team.
Whew.
Still win that game, but like Kansas State's playing much better, and they're gonna need that one if they want to sneak in the tournament.
I
Then you,
wonder I wonder if if there'll be Taco Bell on the line for that K-State matchup.
oh man, yeah, the beef and 5 layer burritos thing never been higher.
It still stands.
I'll say, shout out Saint Bill Snyder, wherever his careless self may
Oh
be.
my goodness.
And then you host Kansas, which obviously
Oh
Kansas kind of had some weird moments this year. Like I don't really know what to make of them, but like you beat them in their place last year. You don't think they're going to be fired up for that one? And I mean, it's going to be an elite college basketball atmosphere. My family's coming out for that one. I mean, that's
yeah,
one of the biggest games in the history of the Marriott Center in terms of
yeah.
like brands. And then you got to go at Arizona, who just whooped you on your home.
Oof.
Like that's a really tough 4 game stretch.
Gauntlet.
I could see BYU losing all 4 of those games and losing
Yeah,
in a row. They have to win at least one of these games. And if they can split the 4 game set, like that's a miracle almost. Like if
yeah,
they can beat Kansas State and then maybe find a way to either beat Arizona or beat West Virginia, like I think the most likely scenario is they beat West Virginia and they beat Kansas State. But even that's tough, man. Like I just don't know. Like this is make or break time for Kevin Young. Like they're gonna live on the bubble. I feel like whatever their fate is gonna be sealed in the conference tournament, where like they're gonna need one more quad one to sneak in and they won't get it, or vice versa. But this is just, I mean, that's the schedule makers knew what they were doing because this is a really, really tough 4 game stretch, and it's gonna be really telling. And man, I'm really looking forward to seeing what BYU does. And I know we've talked about this BYU team in the various times you've had me on, and they've kind of been in different situations, but like this is it, man. Like this is the now or never part of the season. This is where you have to make a statement. Like you either this is where you get buried, or you dig yourself out of the hole, right? This is you either break your back like Batman and Dark Knight and you're just chilling down there, or you lift yourself up, right? Like I mean this is gonna be crazy. So I'm my like I said, that Kansas State game I think is the most winnable. And then maybe Kansas too. Like they're I mean, that's gonna be an electric atmosphere. Kansas is beatable. Like they're not invincible. Like they're not as great as they were last year, but like you still worry about a guy like Hunter Dickinson and some of the other first round talent that I mean, I'm not saying Hunter Dickinson's a first rounder because he's not, but like they have some other lottery type guys. Like they're a good team, man. And like I just don't know. I mean, it's if BYU goes 0-4, man, oh my gosh, like the message boards are going to be having a field day because that's going to be terrible.
What do we do when we fall, Master Wayne? Little
Dude,
Batman shout out there.
why didn't Bruce just tell Alfred he was gonna be in Europe? Like why they gotta run into each other like that? He raised you, Bruce. Come on.
It
Did
it it,
you just
it,
go to
it,
that cafe every day until Alfred showed up?
it had to
And
be
Anne Hathaway's like, I want a new restaurant. He's like, no, I have to wink at Alfred.
it had to be a movie moment, movie magic moment there. Okay. But speaking of Kansas, so for Utah, they're going on the road real quick to Cincinnati, but then they're also at home versus Kansas, currently ranked number 16. A couple massive opportunities for these Utah teams welcoming in a program like the Jayhawks into their arenas. So like you mentioned, some of the biggest games that'll be played. At least talking regular season here in these venues. Utah women's basketball at home versus Colorado, then at ASU. And then also a couple big matchups for the BYU women's team. Two ranked opponents this week at number 9 TCU, then welcoming number 25 Oklahoma State to the Marriott Center. So maybe that OK State one, if you want to get the Cowgirls, do they call them the Cowgirls? I don't know,
I
for
think
the
they're
women's
like,
team. But yeah, a couple big opportunities there for those the women Cougars. So big
yeah,
time there. Lastly, we'll close up with our winners and losers. I had already mentioned Dylan Guenther as a winner, but losers, Kansas City, sorry Chiefs. And lastly, Drake. Drake is big loser of the night. Kendrick said it's game over. Big lights all over the stadium and the crowd that said game over. So I guess the feud, you gave it your all, Mr. Aubrey, whatever his name is. But I believe that battle has ended. Any last thoughts, Jackson?
when Drake makes his comeback at the NHL All-Star game and tries to
That's when you
hit
know.
hit him with that diss track ABCDEFG. Why you gotta come and be mean to me? Like
Aw.
it's already over, man. Drake, don't even try. Just move to an island. Just go live in a mountain somewhere. Just buy a horse. Don't bother anyone. Just disappear.
Yeah, please stop bothering
We've
people.
progressed past the need for Drake.
Yeah. Well, big week for these teams. Big hope you have fun at that Jazz game, and big week for those Cougars. We'll be back next week to recap everything that goes down, and these big opportunities for our Utah team. So we'll catch you guys next time.